All right, back here on another episode of College Basketball Review Courtside as we are really deep in the preseason now, almost at the regular season when you think about it. November 4th, the first day of games. And with us today, someone who's going to be coaching game number one with his new school. That's Kyle Smith, the head coach of Stanford. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
It's great to hear. And obviously, in that intro again, head coach of Stanford, a new school for you. So right off the bat, I'll ask you, what's it been like at your new program?
You know what? It's kind of dreamlike, to be honest. It's not a real place. It's just the weather is campus and working with some really talented people. The student athletes, the administration, just a lot of what I call light bulbs. So it's been good. Transitions are always hard, but where this one's been is as good as it can be.
Obviously, you're used to West Coast basketball. You're at Washington State for the past handful of seasons. What maybe makes this transition easy, being that, you didn't have to go too far? I know it's still a little bit, but, I'm in the Northeast. So when I see one state to another state, it doesn't seem too bad.
No. Well, a little bit. I grew up in Houston, Texas, but really the Bay Area is my second home. I've got a lot of family, friends here, so that makes it a lot easier. My wife went to college here. She went to St. Mary's, and my brother-in-law, my father-in-law live in the area. So that part makes it easier. And then I've always, I've thrived, I think, with the high academic programs as far as just coaching. My 6 years at Columbia feels familiar that way, just with high major athletes. And, experience at Washington State and Columbia. This is kind of the marriage of those two and then the ACC, pretty exciting.
Obviously, over the course of your career, I mean, college basketball community has almost labeled you a program builder. It seems like everywhere you go, you seem to just turn it around and you add winning to these programs. Not going to ask for any secrets, but, just how do you think your philosophy has been able to get this done?
It's keep it simple, stupid. That's amazingly, I wouldn't always ask, but it goes back to really my time as when I was assistant with Randy Bennett at St. Mary's in 2001. I think we took over. We inherited a 2-27 program. Everyone thought I was crazy, including myself, for doing that. And it was a little different era. You couldn't sign over more than 5 guys in a year, 8 over 2 years. So it's just like the exact opposite of what it is now. And we were able to turn it in that climate. So, and I always say, like, we were a heavy emphasis on coaching and development, more the team concept. I think what's changed in the last 20 years is just the individual development. I think that's Kobe's influence, being, the Mamba mentality and guys working individually and these individual trainers, which we've adapted to. But I think, Randy and I both had really good coaching when we were growing up, and I think that's just we've really nailed it. And same here. I mean, I got some tremendous staff that are, like Eric Revenant was WCC head coach of the year 1 year, and Jim Shaw was Division II national coach of the year, was ranked number 1. Has been so. I just think we doubled down on that. That's been our key.
Of course, Randy Bennett, few as good as him and what he's built and what you helped build at St. Mary's. But last year, career year for you almost as a coach, Pac-12 Coach of the Year at Washington State. I mean, just from start to finish, I mean, how fun was last season for you?
It was really rewarding. I knew kind of in the summer, I thought we had a chance to be pretty good. And my AD the year before had said, I don't want you to be the best coach that's never been in the NCAA tournament. I'm like, I never thought about that. It's like, it never crossed my mind. So I was like, all right, I put the little pressure on myself and our team. Like, I wanted to deliver for them, do the best I could. And they were awesome as far as just embracing what it takes. And, just the day to day. And it is about enjoying the journey. I think it's easier as you get older to appreciate every day. I know as a younger coach and then aggressive and competitive, you're sometimes not as grateful for the opportunity and just enjoy the ride. So it's good. And see, like Jalen Wells had 24 in his second NBA, his preseason, but for him to get 24.6 assists, and I said, well, now I know why we were good. He was and Isaac Jones is playing minutes too. So it usually goes hand in hand. Good players, and a fun time.
Yeah, we actually had Isaac on here for a podcast before, around NBA draft time. And what stands out to me about him, Coach, and I'll ask you about him here, is, he averaged around 20 points per game at a mid-major school. That doesn't mean it's going to translate to the power conference level, but it did for him. So what about him do you think separated him in that aspect?
Well, a couple things. His character is unbelievable. He's just a really good human being. His values. His mom's a pastor. He's just, very devout faith. You wouldn't necessarily think that. And we recruited him out of junior college to Washington State. And we got in there late, and he's a relationship guy, and he ended up still sticking it out and staying with Idaho. It took him a while, but he passes the eye test. I should say, like, when I saw him in junior college, I was expecting to see, the 6'6.5" undersized forward. I walk in 5 minutes in the gym. I go, fellas, this guy's a 6'8", 6'9", with no neck, long arms, dunks everything so easy, and he can make shots. I'm like, he's a talent. So that's why I thought it would have a good chance to translate, and it did.
100%, Coach. Obviously, though, last year was the last chance for you to win the Pac-12 Coach of the Year, because Stanford is now in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah.
A story for a whole nother day. But is there, I know you might not be excited about these crazy plane flights that you guys are going to have to take in, but, the excitement of a new conference, the Dukes, the North Carolinas of the world.
For me at this stage of my career, I really consider it the best basketball conference. We're talking Duke, North Carolina, Tobacco Road. Obviously, it's an 18-team league that spans coast to coast. But that's ultimate challenge, to see there. So I'm excited about that. And it works well with Stanford's brand, to be honest, as far as we're a global entity, we're a global national brand. And I think it'll raise our visibility. I think the issues with the Pac-12 network the last 8 years or whatever, the whole league's been, undervalued because no one sees us play. And I know what it's like. I've lived on both coasts, and there is an East Coast bias because I attest to it. When I lived in New York, I stopped watching anything on the West Coast. I couldn't stay up that late. So, I think it's a chance for us to be really relevant in the sport, and we got a lot of work to do, but it's exciting. It's only 4 trips back east. We played 2 each time. So we'll see. No one's done it yet. So we'll see how it all transpires, but these guys are young, and it's something to be excited about.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. I'm glad you bring up the East Coast bias too. I just had Coach Jerry McNamara on the podcast actually earlier today, and we're obviously talking about the Big East. I'm a Big East guy originally,
Sure.
and it is kind of like that. I've been covering college basketball for CBB Review for a handful of years, and you're watching games where we're paying attention to scores in games, but I'm not sitting down and watching these West Coast games. What do you think people are missing out on, I guess?
It's a good brand of basketball. There's a lot of, I think the Pac-12 was the second most NBA players over the last 8 years. So there's a lot of good talent, similar to the ACC that way. I think the ACC and Pac-12 attracted a lot of early entry guys that just the dynamics of the programs, whether it was UCLA, USC. We had 3 guys leave after their sophomore, 2 after their sophomore year, 1 after their junior year. That was kind of the sell for us, was like, hey, you're going to play against really good. This is the best group of 18 to 22-year-olds in the country playing against each other. So a lot of talent. I think Arizona is probably a little more visible. They saw them, but and the league was huge out west. There's some of these teams that are a little bigger than I think when we go play some other teams from back east. Everyone's kind of playing a little more small ball and spreading out, which is kind of NBA like, but like we collected a lot of big people in our league. We were huge at Washington State. We feel small to me at Stanford, and someone walked in our gym. Randy Bennett came watch us practice. Said, "You guys are big," and I was like, "We probably are," but I was like, "We were really big last year." So, and good coaching. It's just I love the league, or I love the former league. I love the basketball West. It's been good to me.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously now with your practices going on for a little while, with games starting up in a little bit, it's going to be, a chance to see this new roster at Stanford. When you go into coaching a new team, how easy it is to maybe make opinions of players the first time that you see them, and do you really have to throw all that out the window and make sure that you're coaching these guys and getting stuff ready for week 1. I don't know if that makes sense in what I'm saying, but
Well, I'll just tell you I've been through 5 transitions where it's like a first, maybe 6 actually, where it's first year head coach. You know, you're going back to Air Force for 1 year and then St. Mary's the next. But I've never watched film on the team, their previous performance. Never. I've just kept it moving forward. Maybe a little bit, to be honest, but I'm like, not like I'm going to sit down and see what these guys do. I just take it. I go clean slate. And I really learned that from the St. Mary's. Like, it's a funny story because I was like, the first time I looked at the guys and they're 2-27, and Randy was on the road and he goes, "What do you think of them?" And I go, "You know, what's scary is it looks like we have good talent and they only won 2 games." And I was like, I would have rather have it like this group that was just overachieving that just couldn't get it done. But I was like, there's a little chaos, but we just have to invest in the ones we had. And we weren't, and then I go, "Randy, are we going to be able to move any of these guys or anybody, you know, maybe find out?" And he goes, "Well, I didn't tell you one thing. When I took the job, I told him I wouldn't run anyone." I said, "Oh, all right." So it made us really worry more about the ones we have than the ones we don't. So it's always been, and this year we had 6 guys that stayed in the program. We had 8 weeks or so to work with them. We gave them a nickname, called them the Hexanal, and said, we're gonna, you know, you guys are gonna set the bar for how hard we're gonna work and everything else. And I understand it's hard. You got a new boss. It's harder for them. But we had 9 newcomers, actually, I think 10 newcomers, but you guys got to set the standard. And thus far as we're approaching the game, it's like, you know, 4 of them are firmly in our rotation, you know, and I think all 6 can contribute in some way. And I think they had a head start on what we're about. So that's always been kind of the thing is, I think most people go in there and want to fire everyone and clean house and do that stuff. And just not my nature, and not, and I've had success going the other way. Just, it's harder. I think it's probably harder. You have to, the other thing, I went to Columbia. I didn't be able to bring in one guy. We had 22 guys on the roster. So I'm well versed in having to take over a new group.
No, man, it's definitely it's a talent of yours. I mean, not every, you know, some coaches struggle to get one program going, and you've done it at different places. And so it's definitely something that, you know, you should feel good about. But, you know, when you look at this Stanford team, coach, what players have maybe stood out to you? Have you been excited about coaching heading into this year?
You know, it's interesting because I think part of the reason is we do make it a meritocracy where you have to earn your playing time, which is hard to do with the recruit. You got to recruit guys, and they want minutes promised to them, et cetera. And I dance a fine line. I say, look, I don't want to overpromise, underdeliver on any of these guys. I say, look, everyone's getting an opportunity. Here's who we have on the roster, et cetera. But the guys, Maxime obviously coming back is tremendous. I mean, going against him, knowing that, and him wanting to finish up at Stanford's huge. That goes without saying. But Aiden Kamen has been really having some good practice. He was the best player in the gym the other day, and he's only a freshman, redshirt freshman from Brewster. And he's just kind of emerged. But Benny Geeler and Jalen Blakes have been really every day as guards, 2-point guards, and we'll play them together. We'll start them together probably. They've just been too tough on both sides of the ball. And then we just got, you know, my guy Chisholm Akbara he's been up and down, but he's gonna contribute for us. And Ryan Agarwal has been another guy that redshirted last year. That, like I said, one of the guys is returning. He's just hungry to prove himself, and just really skillful shooter. And Osiah Sellers, who's come from SC, both those guys. That perimeter has been pretty. Those 4 guys have been pretty rock solid, and which is good. Some of the older guys, and Darren Saran, who's a young sophomore from Irvine, you know, I think he's going to be a really good player too.
Like how you mentioned Jalen Blake's coach.
Go ahead.
I like how you mentioned Jalen Blake's coach because you talk about East Coast and obviously a new conference here. I mean, how much does it help having a guy like that who's played, you know, important minutes in the ACC kind of help your team along?
No, absolutely. He's like going to shepherd us through us. He is a really hard-nosed player. I love him. I love how physical he is, and he's just got a snarl to him. Everyone says that they're all dog. He's a dog. This one's a dog. This one's like a pit bull. And then being those, and also he's a big student of the game too, because he thinks like a coach out there. As far as, you know, I don't think people would understand that about him, but like he's a student of the game. He's always offering things to like, we can do better than this. And I said, hey, just stick to playing. I'll do the coaching. But no, just kidding. But you can tell he thinks that way. And then he said he's a really good competitor. So having, because I said the other day, I said, we won't get pressured here that much. And he says, Coach, we're going to see a lot of pressure. I said, oh, geez. All right. Well, better get working on that. But he knows.
Coach, again, I appreciate having you on. Before I let you go, it's the trending topic in college basketball today. Ken Pom, are you a fan? Are you not a fan?
Oh, I built my career on it. And I'm not as, and I can go down some rabbit holes when I'm just clicking. Yes, absolutely a fan. But I got a text from Jonathan Sapphire at Florida. Is like nothing like the 11:40 p.m. Ken Pom drop on a Sunday night. I was like, I'm like, you need to get a life, Jonathan. So I don't know. Where did the Pom put us?
They got you 99.
That's probably fair. We've always, I think, if we, anyone that looks at the Kyle Smith programs, we usually outperform the original Ken Pom number. So I'm hoping we can do that as well. I see some, I think we got some guys that people would. I just seen them growing. Guys can really improve over at this age, and over the last 4 months, I think we've had some guys make some big strides. So hopefully we can outperform.
100%. They got you one spot above UC Irvine. For what it's worth, we had Russell Turner on this show a few weeks ago. They've got something built there as well. So that's the one thing. I'll argue this. This is my analytic, right?
Yeah.
And I'll get personal here too, because I grew up in UConn country. So most of my friends that follow the game are UConn fans, and they tend to think that, there's only about 10 good teams in college basketball because you're winning all the time.
Yeah.
In my mind, I mean, you've got 100, 150 good teams in college basketball, good teams. And even past that, you still got to prepare for these other teams. Where would you put that?
You can get beat.
Yeah.
There's just so many. I think the talent or the teams is spread out like a pyramid. So,
yeah.
So, like 50 to 100, there's not a tremendous difference there.
Sure.
Especially 70 to 100. 1 through 10 are pretty there. That's a pretty high level, but then 11 to 30, it thins out a little bit, and then, like I said, 31 to 70 or something like that. So yeah, those top half teams they're tough, especially the older. And some of them, like in Irvine, they don't get a lot of opportunities to play. Their number might be a little low because they just don't have as many opportunities at some high major teams. And Russ does a great job. He plays I know he's trying to figure out, he plays like 12 guys every year. It's amazing. I don't know how he keeps them all happy playing that, but they've had a lot of success. And like I said, we took one of his guys. We got to give one back to him. That's the rule. I said gladly. I feel it's the new normal. And, he's like, Darren's probably, he needs another year here. And I said, well, we're about the same level as you right now. So I think if he's playing 19 minutes a game for you, he probably has a great chance to contribute a lot for us. And because the Pom flatlines everything a little bit. Not as much high major. And I do think there's differences, but the numbers there, you can tell when guys, how they translate moving up, et cetera. And it's a good gauge.
Sure. 100%. Obviously, it's college basketball season. When Ken Pom drops, you know that we're getting close.
No doubt.
Coach, I appreciate having you on today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.